Hello, my name is T.R. Welling, and I have developed a new science, well, new and old, called Erdology, A-E-R-D-O-L-O-G-Y. A-E-R-D is Old High German for earth. Ology is obviously Latin for the study of. This science works by measuring to and from fixed points. Now, there's a lot of different ways to explain it. There's a lot of different ways to go through the functionality of the explanation. This program, this specific section part, is about explaining it through the process of comparing it to how Freemasonry, specifically the Blue Lodge and its associated bodies, are constructed, are put together and managed. Okay. You have an individual lodge that has a fixed point birth date when its charter was created. Okay. That fixed point birth date of that specific lodge has a month and day sequence to it. Whatever time period associated with the eight fixed points that the Earth passes through on its way around the Sun in its orbit, those 8 fixed points, February 2nd, March 20th, give or take, May 1st, midsummer, August 2nd, September 22nd, and the second to last is Halloween, October 31st, and then there's midwinter, of course. Then you come back around to February 2nd. Those fixed points in the Earth's orbit are hierarchical categorization concepts of whatever happens in their influence is the influence of where those where that specific sequence of birthdays comes from. Birthday is not really a birthday. Birthday is more of a fixed point. The fixed point of your first breath. The fixed point of your first step. The fixed point of the first day of school. From your first breath to now has been X amount of minutes, days, weeks, months, years, and in some cases decades. There's a dozen ways to measure time, and those are just a few. Over the progress of Erdology, working with, discussing, and examining Erdology, when I became a Mason, I had another tool to explain it. Okay. One of the primary aspects of Masonry is the square and compass. The square is, of course, a square, and the compasses interact with the square in various ways according to the internal workings of Masonry. But what the point is that you have a square and a compass. The point of the 90-degree bend of the square can be seen as where the fixed point of the 8 fixed points of the orbit go, according to measurement devices, measurement to and from. There's a couple different ways to measure months. But at this point, we're only concerned with the starting point, the starting fixed point, which would be the beginning of the month and the beginning of the day, which would be FF. You put, of the compasses, you put 1 point on the month, which is all 15 and 5 days a week, 5 days a year, 5 months a year. It's going to be, there's 5 16-day months, but all the rest are 15-day months. So you put the point on the F. The other point goes on the day. So that it goes, as it's there, it is closed, FF. And then it opens up a few degrees for the next day, FU. Opens up a little bit more for the next day, FTH, A, R, K, G, W, so on. As you go from the top fixed point and then expand out, what you're dealing with is how the compass, and a way of how the compass is supposed to be used. And this dates back 1,000 years, although it dates back longer than that, because York Rite actually began before the age of the Vikings started. Of course, that's Catholic history, and the Catholics do not want to talk about what actually happened during the age of the Viking. The functionality and the structure of Masonry. You have one lodge with its individual compass points. Whatever day it is in the 365 days since its inception birth date, the years are another letter, but this is just 365 days. Whatever day it is now has, say, 200 days past its inception birth date. That number is also a letter. This needs to be restated and restated and restated, so it becomes a conditioned response. All ancient Western culture languages were a character was a number and a letter at the same time, depending on use. Where the character was used in the sentence or in the number of letters present, how that character were used was either a number or a letter. So knowing that it was either a number or a letter means that one character did a lot of information. Now, the language that I've specifically chosen to use in this, used it to reverse engineer what it used to be, is a language and a calendar, which means that not only is it a character is a letter, it is a number, it is also a time sequence. And every Mason knows that there's time references in every state of communication. This is absolutely important, imperative to understand that there's time-free sequences in the state of communication. Now, what those time references are, that's none yet. Become a Mason and find out. At this point in time, Masons need new young blood, so I encourage everyone to come and be a Mason. The aspects of Masonry is that there's not one lodge in a district. In an area, there's not just one lodge. In the area that I'm in, there used to be 7. Now there's 3. The 7 lodges meant that there's 7 individual compass points pointing to individual numbers that became letters that are letters. There's 7 of them. So on any given day, you're X amount of days past any given fixed lodge birth date. XYZ days past. There's 3 of them active right now. So one lodge, the first lodge has one birth date. The next lodge has another birth date, and then the third remaining lodge has a third birth date. Now there's 5 previous that are now defunct lodges, and those 5 all have their own individual birth dates, but they started and they have an end point, which means you measure to and from fixed points. Fixed point of the first breath of the lodge of the charter, and a fixed point of the end where the charter was no longer valid, where that lodge ceased to exist. Usually they merge with another lodge. So you have all those letters. You have, if it's the first day of the first lodge, it's FF. If it's the 8th day, then it's FW. The Grand Lodge of the state has its own individual counts because it has its own birth date, its own start date. Those individual dates counts. Those numbers go first, and then the individual lodges go after its letters. But in America, we have a state Grand Lodge and we have a country Grand Lodge. The Grand Lodge of D.C. is an overall body governing over each individual state's Grand Lodge, and those individual state Grand Lodges govern over the individual lodges of within their districts and jurisdictions. Now, the politics comes into it. Florida has like 20 districts, and there's 4 lodges in the lodge that I belong to. There's 5 lodges in the one to our north neighbor. There's 3 lodges in our south neighbor. There's 5 lodges in our east neighbor, and so on. In that, you have, wherever you have a month and a day, you have a compass pointing its way. In a state of communication, you can see where it is. You can see where the angles and the degrees come into effect per lodge, per state of communication. Now, right now, the person does the thing, and it points to different degrees, but that's not the point. That is now, that's not then. Then, it was semi-specific, and the role of the historian was also very specific, and that's one of the reasons why the historian sits where he does. The historian sits to the north, because that's where King Solomon's temple library used to be. The library used to take up the entire north wall. Why did the library take up the entire north wall? Because libraries are usually not small. There was exits to the temple in other areas, but it's many floors and several hundred feet wide to be able to store a library like this. So that's where the library was, and the historian was in charge of the library. The historian would also be also close to the Bible to be able to take down the numbers, take down the letters, and do the transposing. What letters are present, what numbers, and how do they correspond with a measurement of time. Things get a little bit complicated, but that's not the point. Everything in, say, Washington State, there's about 200 lodges. So that's 200 individual birthdays in order to be able to measure to and from. Now remember, in a year, there's 365 days, which means there's 365 individual fixed points. So you have 200 of the 200, give or take, of the individual 365 days where their numbers, the start date, my birthday, for instance, is March 8th. Well, that's the 3 and that's the 3rd month and the 8th day of the Gregorian calendar. That translates into the other calendars, but that becomes very, very complicated because they work in a geared and transmission type system. There's 8 gears in the transmission. You have the first, the first gear would be, say, midsummer. The second gear would be the gear after that. 3rd gear, 4th gear, 5th gear, so on. when that gear is inactive, that is the time frame of when that orbital fixed point is it the most influential. For instance, right now it's October 10th. So therefore, the time period that the gear that's working right now is the gear of Halloween. It's October 31st. A lodge that I'm aware of has its birthday in about 2 weeks. Well, that 2 weeks from now would be just a few days before October 31st. So a few days before October 31st, and you have that. Right now it's 300 and some days until that. It's been 300 some days since that lodge's birthday, and it's 14 days to its birthday. So you have all that information, all those numbers convert to letters, and you have straight, long, big, huge strings of letters. Every day that goes by in every single Masonic lodge, the lodges themselves have a language, because you have 200 lodges. That's 200 individual birth dates, and every birth date is a month and a day. And if you want to include it's 365 day count, you can too. That's 3 characters, so that's 200 lodges times 3. So you have 200 times 3. You have 600 letters, 600 individual characters that become letters. Those 600 individual letters operate under the Grand Lodge's 3 letters. So you have 603. Those 603 combined with DC's birth date, the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia, the capital, you have 306. Then you have UGL, United Grand Lodge of England, and its birth date. So you have 309. So you have 309 birthdays that just apply to Washington State. In England, the last time I checked, there's like 1,000 of them. So that's 3,000 individual birth dates. Obviously, you're going to have some crossover. There's going to be one lodge. There's going to be one date that has like 5 lodges that were formed on that specific date in different years. So you have, in England, you have 5,000 letters. 5,000 letters become, 6,000 letters. There's no way there's not words in there. There's no way that there's not sentences in there. There's no way that there's not paragraphs, because there's too many letters not to have some kind of linear logical sequence. Plus the fact that the reason why I know that it's not just a random collection of letters like spaghetti, alphabet spaghetti, is because the mathematics is too precise. The numbers are letters. It only works if it's in the same sequence, exactly the same time, every single solitary time. That's the only way the math works. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 always has to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But before Arabic numbers were invented, which is 0 through 9, before the separation between letters, spelling letters and spelling characters and number characters, before that separation, it was the same thing. So you had to have exactly the same sequence in characters to be able to make the math work. So there's going to be words in there. Pay attention, Scottish Rite and York Rite. There's aspects of the stuff that we do. I'm both Scottish and York, where there's hidden words. Finding the hidden words. This is an excessively good way to find those old ancient hidden words, is by knowing that I can predict with 100% accuracy 100% of the time, depending on when the birth dates are, when certain collections of letters are going to be present. When the twos, the C's, the B's, the chair, table, such. I can predict when those letter sequences are going to be there. I can predict 100 years from now when the letters will spit out TABLE or BE or THE, SO, what have you. Whatever word you want to apply, I can predict with 100% accuracy 100 years in advance when those letters are going to be present. Now, where things become interesting is individual members and their free will. Individual letters of each individual's birth dates mess everything up, because on one meeting you might have 100 members, and on another meeting you might have 8. Their birth dates are included, where they were, what chair they played, what chair were they in the north, were they in the south, did they take an officer's chair, what role did they play? All those places are fixed. So you have fixed points to be able to measure to and from. So you have, if person A is a steward this week but can't make it next week, well then that person's birthday numbers, letters, are added last week but will not be added next week. Well, it might be added the next week, or that person may not be able to be available for a month, so therefore it's 2 stated communications where that person is not available. But but all the rest of the time, all the rest of the stated communications for that year, that person's available, so that person does the job. Their numbers, letters fit in. It would be excessively interesting for Masonry, for the organizational structure of Masonry, specifically on the state level, to take this program, take the application that I'm attempting to make, and type in all this information. By the way, there's also 3 other fixed points 4 other fixed points for each individual. The day they made their AE, the day they made their FC, their step up, and then their give back. Technically speaking, there's 6 numbers there, because the A is the doing it, and then the B is the give back. Well, there's 3 A and B's. Of course, the B part is also important, because the states, individual states only allow X amount of time. In the 2 states that I have direct knowledge of, they only allow X amount of time after you have the A part done to be able to give the B. So those dates are letters. Those numbers become letters. The date is a number. 2 numbers. Well, more than that, but that's not the point. Those letters get into the mix. They're being added to the mix, and when people do their thing, then they come and go. They're active. They're not active. They're semi-active. They take a chair. They start working the chairs to go to the east. When those things occur, that's when the interesting words start to become real. Because it's impossible to predict who will be the worship master of my home lodge, because my home lodge, the person who will be worship master in 10 years has not been determined yet. It's entirely possible that the person who's going to become worship master of that lodge in 10 years is not even a Mason yet. The worship master of my plural membership lodge has been semi-determined, but semi-kind of not determined. It's even a question whether or not that lodge will still exist in 10 years. There's all kinds of politics involved. But the point is that all those fixed points, the day that the worship master was elected, the day the worship master was given the charge, the last day that worship master was in place, the step up ceremony, the day that person became a past master, or my home lodge. There's very few There's very few masters that stay on for more than 1 year. Occasionally they'll stay on for 2 or 3, but that's excessively rare. My other lodge, there's at least 3 people that have been worship master for at least 6 years, separately. And there's one that I know that has been worship master. He was worship master for one stretch for 10 years. And then about 10, 15 years later, he came back and did another year. The point is that that specific person who was worship master for 10 years and then came back and did another year, all that free will stuff, his birth date, and the number of times that he was worship master include in the compass. Where you use a compass to measure as the month and day pass, and then use other compasses for other aspects of what's going on. So you can then sequence out all those letters to make words, to make sentences, paragraphs, chapters, and so on. Finding that information out is part of our stuff. We are tasked with finding this information out and rebuilding it, and finding out what that hidden information is. Now, you'll have to decode aspects of the stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about to be able to find that information out, but there's several million Masons out there, Master Masons out there, who have the ceremonies memorized. So you just go through it and look for the hidden codes. It's difficult, but at the same time it's encrypted. So you have to use a decryption key. Well, the decryption key is if you know that you're looking for this, if you know you're looking for Erdology, you can find it, which gives a lot of credence for assisting in building the app that will allow for Erdology to be proved and the mathematics to become all abject, complete, total reality. No theory, it's beyond fact. It's an accepted truth, kind of like radium. Pierre and Marie Curie's Nobel Prizes in physics came with a brand new field of science that was already there, always there, but humans were not advanced enough to be able to figure that out. Well, now I'm presenting a new one, a new abject hard fact, impossible to disprove, that is a defined reality that Freemasonry was in part created to make sure that those secrets were not lost.